Okay, let's call our June 8th, 2021 meeting to order, please. Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Crystal, please.
Trustee Gator.
Here.
Trustee Jerome.
Here.
Trustee Kenny.
Present.
Trustee McDonald.
Here.
Trustee Whitehouse.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson. Here. Mayor Hammond.
Here. Any amendments to the agenda that we need to be aware of tonight? Okay. Any conflicts of interest we need to be aware of tonight?
No, sir.
Okay. Move on to item B. This is community participation, public comment time. Public comment. Individuals wishing to speak on non-agenda items will need to raise your hand. I think we're not doing that, are we? Here we are, but what about virtual?
Virtual.
Okay, so once called upon, please come to the podium, state your name for the address and with your address and for the record. Individuals are going to be limited to 3 minutes during the public comment. And then we'll take it on. So anybody in the public would like to approach the bench, talk about non-agenda items? Now's your chance.
Non-agenda or not, you have to forgive me, my voice is going out. My name is Sherry Leeper. I live at 3802 Harrison. I wanted to talk about the high density zoning and the commercialization that they're talking about changing our neighborhood to. I understand I'm a little bit late to the party, but I do want to register that I am adamantly opposed to that. That is the core of Wellington. That is literally the original town where I live. And I live in my grandmother's house, which was built in 1917. They had the Wallen Grocery, which is where the Papa's Table is now. And my father, Wilson Leeper, for the center is named after, also lived there. So it's kind of an historic place. Sure. And it's a very quiet, historic and peaceful neighborhood. And I'm afraid that high density and commercialization would really change the living experience for the entire neighborhood. I know we turned in a petition of over 200 folks who were against it. Evidently that didn't hold enough weight, so I wanted to come and register my opposition to it. I would like to see both of those things removed from the comprehensive plan because I don't.
Real quick, you don't want to see downtown Main Street as commercial?
No, downtown Main Street is commercial. I don't want to see Harrison and McKinley become commercialized. And I want to know what else we need to do to get you to hear that, because I've lived here all my life. I mean, we moved back up here when I was 5 to help Grandma and Grandpa with the store. So it's pretty amazing because my father's the one that started a long, long time ago, the improvements to this town, because my brother asked him to do that before he left for Vietnam. He never came back. My dad went to CSU and asked them to help him write a grant, and he pulled out $500,000 for a town of 500 people. Got the roads paved, got the low-income housing put in, got the first water system put in. We should have really pushed that a little bit further. So it's a shame to see it come to this now. I would also like to make sure that the Planning Commission hears this protest as well. And I'm also curious as to how much was spent on the comprehensive plan. And I have to be honest with you, I wasn't paying attention. I was all involved in the COVID thing and my health issues. I didn't come outside. I wasn't reading about the town. I was reading about how do I survive this pandemic. So that's on me. I understand that. But I'm curious to know more about the plan, how much was spent, and if that's influencing decisions in any way. Because even though you spent a lot of money, and I think there are some good suggestions in there, I've been reading a lot, trying to get caught up and educate myself. I'm afraid that that's influencing decisions too. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Real quick, it's coming up for public comment at the Planning Commission again.
Is it?
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Okay,
Yes,
and when is that?
I think it's July 12th.
July 12th?
Is that right?
Yeah, Cody's shaking his head, yes.
Yes,
Here?
I believe so. It'll be here.
Okay, I will be here then.
Yes, ma'am. Please
Thank
be
you
here.
very much for your
You bet.
time.
No, that's a great place to be for this. Absolutely. You bet. Thank you for the comments. Anyone else? Yeah. Okay, then. Well, come on up, sir. Let's hear it.
Because I've been reading your website. Not a lot of fun to get to. I'm Larry Casper. I'm at 3802 Harrison also. What is driving this sudden urge to spend money that you don't have? You've got all this development planned for these side streets now. You have spent more on taking out trees in the last 3 weeks than supposedly you had money. You didn't come up with the comprehensive plan just out of blue. You paid some people a hell of a lot of money to come up with a plan that no one seems to want. Is this just for developers, or where is the money coming from, and how did you justify spending it on something that the people who live in the area do not want? Those are my questions I'd like to find out before July 12th. And I think a lot of people, you may sway them one way or the other if they knew why you're using this tact and spending money on out-of-town services, because obviously it wasn't done by people who lived here that came up with this plan. These are engineering plans. My suspicion is not even in the state. I want to know that before the 12th.
Okay.
It doesn't add up financially. So that's all I have to add to it.
Okay, I think we can take care of those questions. Thank you. If anyone else would like to come up, speak on non-agenda items, it's a good time to do it. Okay, we'll bring it back to the board then. Public comments go over with. Nothing else over there? Virtual? Okay.
Make a quick comment, Mayor. People were asking about the cost of the comprehensive plan. All of that information is in the town budget. So if you go to the town website on the finance dropdown, you can look at the budget on 2021. And if you just type, you could Control F and find, look up comprehensive plan, and you can see all of the money that's budgeted for that there.
Thank you, Trustee Gator. Okay, and with regard to the other comments, I think that's easy to get out. All right, we'll move on. Looks like we have a presentation to go to. Is that correct? All right, this is going to be the Sanitary Sewer Collection Master Plan. This should be interesting. Mr. Meyer.
Good evening, trustees, Mayor. Dave Meyer, staff engineer. Sorry, I'm not there in person tonight. To be honest, I'm not feeling very well, but I'll get through this with no problem. So we've had Jacobs working on a master plan for our sewer collection system, as well as our wastewater treatment plan since late 2020. So Jacobs has been working very closely with town staff throughout the process. And that includes town planner Cody Bird, who was very helpful in relaying information regarding growth projections and coordinating with a comprehensive plan, because a lot of the information was used to put together this master plan. So thanks to Cody for his assistance there. The wastewater plant portion of the master plan was presented to the board on September 15th. And that final report was delivered in December of last year. Again, that was for the plant itself. Tonight, however, the focus is on Wellington's sanitary sewer collection system. And that is the sewer pipes throughout town that deliver the wastewater to the wastewater plant. The project involved flow monitoring throughout our system. That was an item that was approved by the board back in February of last year. And that information was vital in the assessment of our system, as you'll hear momentarily. The work also involved collection of rain data from some weather stations that were installed and monitored by town staff, and Jacob's development of a hydraulic model of our entire sewer system. Well, not our entire system, You'll hear about that in a minute. But that model was built on recently updated surveys of our sewer system. So yes, we do now have GIS of our sewer system network, by the way, along with our water and storm drainage systems. A draft of the collection system master plan that you're about to hear about has recently been reviewed by town staff, and feedback has been provided to Jacobs. And Jacobs is now working on incorporating all those comments into a final written report that will be delivered within a month or so. And tonight's slideshow will summarize Jacobs' findings and recommendations. So with that in mind, I'd like to reintroduce Jacobs' project manager, Richard Saxton. You've heard from him before. He'll lead us into the collection system findings. Richard, I do believe Crystal has unmuted you and allowed you sharing rights. So the collection system floor is now all yours.
I just had something funny happen to my computer. Can you hear me, Dave?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. And I had a little pause there. Thank you for the introduction. I will share my screen and we will go through the slideshow.
Sounds good.
Get the right one. Okay. This may not be the. Can you see my screen?
I can, Richard. I don't know about the board members.
Are you able to see the slideshow?
Yes, we can.
Looks like I can in the TV screen in the background. Thank you. Yep. Good, we're working. So yeah, Richard Saxton, project manager with Jacobs in Fort Collins. Wanted to give you a high-level overview of some of the key findings. The punchline is your collection system is in pretty good shape for the large part, and I'll run through what we found. So to do a collection system master plan, what we do is, as Dave suggested, we collect flow monitoring data, we collect rainfall data to see, do the flows increase during a rain event or not? The answer, fortunately, is not in your case. We put that computer model together of the main trunk sewer system. We then look at it to see how is it behaving for your existing system? Does the computer model represent reality or not? So we validate the model. We then go all the way to the conclusion. So we use the ultimate build out population that's come out of the comprehensive plan to see what size sewers do you need ultimately. And then we backed it off to about a 20-year projection, 2040, which ties in with the 20-year utility plan requirement to see how is it looking at an intermediate milestone. So I'm going to walk you through that steps. So again, the goals of the master plan that we were contracted to do was to use information on the ultimate build out of the population to see where you need to be in the end, but also to look at the growth patterns that are projected in there, namely, are you growing uniformly or is it densifying more in one area than another initially? We then look to see if there are any existing issues with your system. Sewers are fine, the lift station needs some attention, that would be the punchline there. Then, like I said, the third bullet, the comprehensive plan shows an ultimate build out of about 35,500 people. So based on where those are located in the comprehensive plan, what would your sewer system look like? And then, like I said, going to 2040, which is with the present growth projections, the order of 25,000 people in 2040, how does your system look? So first to the model, you may be able to see, on the right-hand side of the screen there, it's an aerial image of your existing service area The blue lines may be a little hard to read, but they are the trunk sewer lines, the main arterial lines that carry most of the flow. So those are the ones that we modeled. We don't model all the way down to each individual house, but we essentially pick up what comes out of each of the main neighborhoods into the larger sewer lines, which mostly is 12-inch pipe and above. The in this image here, you've got some red dots and some text boxes. They represent 7 different locations where the town contracted with Hack out of the Front Range to put flow monitors in there for a couple of months. So that's where our flow monitoring data came from. That's real-time information in conjunction with the wastewater plant, which is in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Your collection system consists of gravity sewers and 1 lift station just to the west of the Viewpoint subdivision. We used what is called Inflow Swim as our software. And for a collection system, really the most important thing is that it conveys the peak flows. So we're really focused on the peak hour flows in the system to make sure you can carry those flow rates. In addition to the nanofiltration plant, which is just north of Old Town, that is one of your water plants. And when there's a clean in place wash periodically, we have to carry that peak flow into the system as well. Go to the next slide. So validating this model, I was very, very impressed with the quality of the flow data that we received and the way the model validated to it. In a nutshell here, you have different flow meters, different locations, different dates, and the gray line represents what the computer model is predicting, if you like, that you would get in your system today. The blue is what was actually measured. So these are some example dates, example locations. On the bottom, we actually have the same flow meter under 2 scenarios. The one on the left is normally how it looks, and this is located just south of Old Town, south of downtown. The one on the bottom right-hand corner here represents the case when the nano water plant does its clean in place flush. And you can see a definite spike here, and you can see that the model underneath it correlates with that very well. So what does that mean about the existing system? Well, consistent with what town staff would observe by pulling manhole lids and taking a look, you do not have any current capacity concerns in your interceptors based on what we have found. The one highlight there, though, which the town was already aware of, is the Viewpoint lift station. I've got the term unsafe. In order to access, maintain, and service some of the pumps in that facility, there's some work that needs to be done to make that condition safer. There's also some pending capacity concerns based on a JVA study that was done by others a couple of years ago. They're indicating that when the new school comes online, you should be okay, but it's kind of starting to push the limit of the lift station. So we look to see if there are any practical ways to eliminate the lift station. We don't believe there's a cost-effective way to do that. You'd have to install 3,000 or 4,000 feet of very deep new sewer line that would include a couple of road crossings. So it seems prudent to give some TLC to that lift station in the next couple of years to keep it running and to improve the capacity to the point that we would recommend from the study.
Was that an engineering term that you said there? What was that? TLC?
Tender loving
Clear
care.
that up.
Yeah, just a little bit of attention to the lift station would help. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Focus your eyes on the 2 circles. On the day of April 17th, represented in blue, these are 2 different graphs for 2 different flow meters. On April last year, there was a pretty significant rain event. these are graphs showing what was actually recorded in your sewers. The orange is the same location on a dry day. And you can see at the same day of the week, you can see that the blue and the orange graphs on wet days and dry days are the same. In other words, you have insignificant influence on the flows in your sewer system when it rains. Inflow, infiltration is what we tend to look for. Inflow is if you have, let's just say you had a big puddle that formed in a street and you had a hole in the manhole lid, right? Or a hole in the concrete around the manhole and water poured in, that would be an inflow. Or if you had downspouts off buildings that were connected into the sewer system, that would be a direct inflow. Infiltration is typically groundwater seeping in through cracks in old sewer lines or bad joints. So we're not seeing either of those in this case. And that is, to be honest, unusual, and it's very good news. It means you don't have to oversize your sewer system to handle a storm event. And likewise, currently, based on this, we don't see a need for lining the sewers based on keeping, groundwater out. As time goes on, that can change, especially in the older part of town. So it's prudent to have a bit of a budget for that, but we don't see any evidence right now. So like I said in the introduction, the next stage of the master plan is to look at the ultimate system that you may need to have to serve full build out, which for the purposes of this study was the 35,500 people. The exhibit on the right is a higher zoomed out view of your service area. Not needing to get into the details there, but in essence, we have 3 fingers in blue going up to the north. That is where there is, projected growth in the comprehensive plan, and there's no sewer pipes there at all right now. So you'd have to have those built clearly, as development happens. The orange areas are where, in order to accommodate those flows, there's not enough capacity in your existing pipelines to run these areas, these growth areas, through your existing pipe network. They're not big enough. So if you think about an analogy of driving south of Denver, you've got a couple of E470 options, right? So we have like a bypass interceptor sewer line in orange here, one on the west and one on the east. They need to be installed in parallel as development happens to supplement your existing system. So ultimately, you need a few more pipelines to help out. On the south, there is proposed development south of your current service area. So in blue here, we have a couple of representations of sewer lines that need to run up from the south. Use the word up on purpose, meaning that they would need to be pumped for the most part. The other potential area of attention when you get close to your build out capacity would be possibly in the middle of town here. You have on 5th Street and through there are some sewer lines which would be very, very close to full, possibly more than full, but only in the very worst scenario, which I may as well explain now. I talked about that nano water plant. If you have peak hour residential flows, commercial industrial flows, concurrent with a monthly flush from the nano, that's when you're seeing some bottleneck problems. But you have an opportunity to select when you do that nano treatment plant flush. So I feel fairly confident that you can mitigate needing to make any improvements here with some careful scheduling of that work. Anyway, so this is a kind of a roadmap that we look at to see where do you need additional help. We'll go to the next slide. How would you accomplish that? And I may toggle to and fro the screens here a bit. Oversizing. So I'll use an example, Sage Meadows. Go back to where we were. The development in Sage Meadows down here foresight a number of years ago, anticipating the need several years ago for a west side interceptor. The town worked with the developer there to oversize a sewer line, put in a 30-inch pipe that's fairly deep. That means that that little segment is now built and is there for future use, right? As other areas would be built where the orange lines are drawn here, we would anticipate the same thing as development occurs. Segments of a larger sewer line would be put in according to whatever oversizing policy the town adopts through developments. It's clearly a lot cheaper to upsize a pipe when it's first built than it is to go back in through a residential neighborhood or some other development and dig up the street and put a pipe in. So we anticipate the orange areas being where the town would participate with developers to upsize. The blue lines, again, I'm not one to make policy here at all, but the blue lines would probably be where, as growth happens, it would have to put these lines in. But again, above my pay grade. Going back to build-out recommendations. So there is a segment already in at Sage Meadows, which is great. The high school development, there is not one that's through there. That would not be large enough right now and would require a parallel pipe in the future. What's the third bullet here, which I talked about, and that was you may or may not need to do anything here. And we recommend flow monitoring and careful management of the water plant, scheduling of flushing. To jump through to interim assessments, a year 2040, 2040, according to the comprehensive plan, would have a total town service area population of 25,000 people. And in talking with your planning group, the consensus was that more of the growth would probably happen sooner in the southern part of your system. And less would happen further north. That makes some sense because of proximity to Fort Collins and other developments to the south. It also is convenient for the town because this is closer to your wastewater plant, so therefore requires less infrastructure improvements from a pure engineering perspective. So what does this graphic show? In the year 2040, we have assumed for this planning purpose that the green area in the middle here, which is your currently developed area, would be fully developed by 2040. The area in yellow, we're calling the southern area, would be 90% developed. So that's 90% of the way from now through the build out numbers in the population projections of the comprehensive plan. 80% on the east, 60 in the mixed use, commercial, industrial, some residential corridor, and 35% in the north and west part. So having that flow distribution loaded into the computer model, the good news is that your trunk sewer line system can convey those to the wastewater plant without the parallel interceptor pipes that I talked about just now being required. You're right on the tipping point at 2040. So late 20. So if I use 25,000 people as the number, right around 25,000 people, maybe a little bit before, a little bit after, is when these lines would need to be activated. And again, ideally, those are being built as development occurs. Let's see what else we have. I think that's pretty much what I have. And this is a larger screen capture of the draft comprehensive plan based on what we had available to us a few weeks ago. The different colors in there represent different zoning numbers, and the numbers represent the number of dwelling units in each of those quarter sections, and the purple being mostly industrial. So that would be covered in a separate plan by others doing the comprehensive plan. Any questions?
You guys got any questions for Jacobs?
Yeah, I did. Pardon me. I mean, maybe this is Mr. Gowing. I thought when we were talking with the Poudre School District that there was some discussion about upsizing that sewer pipe from them, because my understanding is it runs under their playing fields, and they had some serious concerns about digging those up in the future. So obviously, if they got a 10-inch line in there now or 12-inch, that's not sufficient. Is there a reason that that didn't actually occur? Was it, again, this might be a Bob Gowing question if.
Probably best answered by the town, yeah.
Okay.
Trustee Whitehouse, this is Dave Meyer. I'm not sure I can answer that question, and I'm not sure if Bob is there in person or not. But that is something that I could definitely follow up with and provide you an answer.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, certainly that's wonderful. Thank you.
And if I could offer one comment, I'll use this. Let me go back a couple of exhibits here to show you. If we think about building an interceptor system in pieces, obviously sewage has to flow downhill. It would be very, very useful to have not just a master plan that gives you flow rates, but also really a pretty good level design that's looked at things you'll bump into when you put these interceptor sewers in, such as ditch crossings, canal crossings, railroads, roads, other infrastructure that's in the way. So it would be a recommendation that I would make, and I'll include in the master plan, is that the oversizings not be done in a vacuum. And that pertains to the school a little bit. So the school is a long way from the other interceptor components. So not answering why it was or wasn't put in at the school, but to know what elevation and what size and what slope to install it in, I think would benefit a lot from having a pretty good level design of a trunk sewer system, so that pieces are built in the right place at the right elevation as you go, if that makes sense.
And Richard, if I could interject, please, that 10-inch line right now, that would need to be addressed until that area starts developing to the northwest portion. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay. That's long-range planning there, bud.
Well, I did have one other question.
Sure.
When are peak hour flows? Is that morning, evening, certain days? I mean, a couple times.
Good question. It was actually curious. We had a pretty good trend that Sundays were significantly higher on average than any other day of the week. This flow monitoring was done, of course, during COVID, but when we looked at the flows of the wastewater plant, compared to this year and other years, it gave us a bit of a source of comfort, I guess, that we weren't too out of context. But yeah, Sundays appear to be the highest, and based on this shape, I don't have enough tick marks on here to show you, but I think you'll generally find, around the lunchtime was when we were having the highest peaks.
Thank you.
Yep.
It'd probably coincide with the peak water usage time that they've been showing us on all the other stuff.
Right.
Probably correct.
One question, Richard. This might be a dumb question, but probably is because I'm asking it. Anyway, so talking flow rate, how long does it take for flow rate from Buffalo Creek to get down to the wastewater treatment plant?
It's a good question, and I don't actually have an answer to that for you, but I will say not too long. I mean, this is going to be a gut guess on my part, quite honestly, but less than an hour would be my suspicion. It will depend on the flow rates. Anything that has to go through the deep point lift station, you have a wide spot in the pipe there and a wet well, so it depends how long it takes for that to cycle. But you do have a fairly small collection system. The benefit of that is that the sewage stays fairly fresh, if you like, so you don't have a lot of off-gassing and hydrogen sulfide and corrosion problems.
Looking forward to that field trip. Anyone else?
I did have a question, and I guess this would be for Dave. I know in the calculations you put together with this for us for the sewer plant and financing and all that, just again, I know those are rough numbers, but did that take into account, because I know there was a portion for expansion and growth, did that take into account some of the things that we're talking about here tonight and having to pay for those? Or are these things that we're going to be talking about a high level of additional expense that's going to have to be brought back in?
Trustee Gaither, this is Dave again. The answer is no, that price that we were looking at for the wastewater treatment plant only included the plant itself. It did not include any of the things that you just heard about tonight from Mr. Sexton.
Sorry, yes, I understand that. I was talking because I know you had in there a calculation, like a certain percentage of funds that would be needed every year for improvements on the plant. I was asking, so that these type of projects would be outside of what was included in that percentage of growth of expense. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, Trustee, I misunderstood you. The answer is yes, it was included. Those items were included in the financial plan that we've been presenting.
Okay, got it. So in that, the 20% or whatever I'm throwing out, but that would include these type of projects.
Yes, there were some placeholders for lift station improvements and periodic upgrades to our system, should they be needed. Upgrades meaning maintenance, lining, that sort of thing. But as you heard from Richard, it doesn't seem to be a top priority right now, at least for the 5 or 10 years. So that's excellent news. So those funds that we put aside in the financial plan could potentially be used for some other projects.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Well, that was kind of my question for staff, was there were a couple of projects that were outlined in the capital improvement budget. And I was just curious if they were in alignment with
Right.
the long-range plan that they're presenting this evening.
Okay. I think some of them are.
Mhm.
The other one's development going to pay for, right?
Well, there's 2 in here, so I was just curious. Because then they break it down by year, what the financial obligation is for like the next 5 years.
And if I could offer, in the master plan, we will include some very high level, estimates for what this infrastructure may cost, but what that costs the town is clearly dependent upon the policies, right, and how it all gets funded and paid for and who pays for it. So the numbers that we include won't really be reflective of who pays what. It'll be more, this is the cost of infrastructure, and it'll be at a very high level, because until actual routings and designs are done, it's, you can't really nail down the particulars. So, yeah.
Right, and Trustee McDonald, if I could interject as well, the information that we're getting from this master plan, the cost and what needs to be done in the future as far as capital improvement, that will make its way into the financial plan that we'll be developing pretty soon, I believe. I'm trying to speak for Bob. I understand that he wasn't feeling very well tonight. But yeah, absolutely. We're kind of waiting for the information on this plan so we can build our financial plan for the system starting very soon. As far as things that have been previously planned, yeah, we'll have to go back and kind of modify that as well. The big thing right now that I'm seeing is that we're working on right now is the lift station improvements. I just spoke with Jesse today about that, and he confirmed that they're working with the electricians right now to get the improvements done on that lift station.
So in the capital improvement budget, there's a section in there for the wastewater collection improvements and oversizing. So my question was, is that item that's been outlined in the capital improvement budget incorporated into the master plan that's presented this evening?
So I'm going to try to speak for Bob here, so forgive me, but I believe the answer is no. When that budget was put together last year about this time, we made some assumptions on what we thought at that time the collection system would be needing. Some fair assumptions with the information we had on hand at that time. So that's how they came up, how those numbers were generated. Obviously, for 2022's budget, that will require some modification based upon what we just heard.
Good evening, Cody Bird, Planning Director. Ms. McDonald, Trustee McDonald, the line item that you're referring to is in the current capital improvement plan in our budget document. Is that correct?
Correct.
That line item for oversizing was paybacks on existing developments that are already under construction.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Cody.
I'm sure we'll talk more about that as we go. Anything else? Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to action items. Oh, wait a second. Point of order. Consent agenda. Meeting minutes from May 11th, 2021 and May 25. Board of Trustees meetings. Is there anything that we need to talk about, or can we get a motion to approve those?
I move to approve the consent agenda, the minutes from May 11th, 2021 and May 25th, 2021.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Jerome,
Yes.
trustee Kinney,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
trustee Whitehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Knutson,
Yes.
Mayor Hammond.
Yes. Okay, action items. D1, we're going to review the emergency declaration resolution 13-2020.
I know, I get to stay sitting. It feels kind of awkward. So thank you, Mayor and Trustees. Patti Garcia, Town Administrator. So the initial emergency declaration resolution was adopted on March 24th. There was an extension provided on April 28th. The number of COVID cases, as you well know, is decreasing. The county and the state are releasing and reducing their requirements for, social distancing and things like that. So I felt that this would be a good time to bring this back for your review. There's a couple options for you. And one of those options is to leave the emergency declaration in place as it sits right now. There are no requirements on your current declaration that says that that people have to be masked, or there has to be social distancing, or we have to close the businesses or anything like that. It's just strictly stating that there's an emergency declaration. The state has continued with their emergency declaration in talking with other municipalities. Most are keeping this in place right now because no one knows what's happening with that federal funding that's coming down the pipeline. A lot of times when there are grant funds available related to an emergency, one of the first questions that they ask you is, are you under an emergency declaration, based on, adopted by your Board of Trustees or your City Council. So we can leave it in place. We can leave it in place with the direction to me to bring forward a resolution of revocation once the state revokes theirs, because once the state revokes theirs, it's pretty much a done deal, that there's no funding available, or, they've exhausted all opportunities. The other opportunity you have is to revoke this tonight. There is a resolution attached to this agenda packet that would allow you to revoke this emergency declaration effective tonight, if that would be your choice. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Just to reiterate, the current declaration has zero specifics on how the town operates under the emergency declaration, correct?
Correct.
So there's no mandates for any type of closings, any of that stuff. So if we do nothing, nothing changes.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
What else?
Yeah, I did have a question. I know that we've received several rounds of funding so far due to COVID. With the process of all of those, was there ever a question of whether or not we were in a state of emergency? Was that asked and a requirement for any of the funding that's been out so far?
I cannot speak to that. Is Kelly Hodling on the call?
Okay, thanks.
That was all done before I started here. So Kelly was the one that helped administrate those, and she can answer that question in a moment.
Sure thing. And I think the only thing that the emergency declaration, to answer Trustee Jerome's, is it allowed us to meet online, which we're not doing anymore. That was the one change that was allowed under the emergency
Right.
declaration.
But no requirements.
No requirements, no.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. So with the funding that we received in 2020, I know we received several rounds of funding related to COVID. With the process on that, was there ever a requirement, or was that question ever asked, are we in a state of emergency to be eligible for that funding?
I believe it was when we worked with the county and their funding, how we allocated the county's funding out that came from the state. So I'm not sure if there was other funding opportunities that might come available, but I think it was part of the Lamar County state funding.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have some pretty strong feelings on this one. And I'll try to put some bullet points to it. So the points that were brought up earlier already, Ms. Garcia, I think are really important to acknowledge that we don't know the process for funding in the future. Although a lot of those funds have been allocated, whether to states or through certain programs, the process for receiving those directly to our town hasn't been designated yet. For a lot of the programs that we're requesting that staff seek aggressively. So whether they're related to infrastructure projects or similar funding projects that we've done in the past with these funds. So without knowing the requirements, but knowing that they are associated with that emergency, I think it's prudent that we maintain the same, or at least at this point, and then make sure we consider in the future the same emergency declaration as the state. If we were to exclude ourselves from any of these funding opportunities, it would be a gross, it would be us failing the citizens of Wellington, where other communities would be able to take advantage of these funds, and especially if they're targeted towards projects that Wellington desperately could use funds for. So by removing this declaration, I think that we're doing something above and beyond that could discount our feasibility of getting additional funds in the future. And based on the fact that it doesn't designate any of the actions that we do, it doesn't really change our operating process. I don't see the reason to take such risk. I think that we should leave it the way it is.
Okay. Anyone else?
Just to clarify, the reason I asked was because I'm leaning your direction that we should stay into it. But I just wanted to make it very clear that everybody understands if we stay in it, nothing changes. So.
Other comments?
I would reiterate the comments or the positions of Trustee Jerome and Trustee Kinney. I mean, there's so much money out there and there's a lot of need here in town. So if we can get it, I think if it's not impacting people, then I think it's reasonable to keep it here for now.
Well, I think the key is impacting them in a negative way. Is there a negative impact to the community by continuing to parallel our emergency declaration with the state and the county? I personally don't see one. So I am in alignment with Trustee Kinney's thoughts.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, got anything?
I'm just reading through here quick, but I don't see any.
I'm of the same mindset. Absolutely. There are other municipalities in the state, they're not doing it for a reason. I don't see why we should lead the way there. So let's lead the way in getting the funds.
We're doing
Right.
our best.
Okay, well,
Your final comment?
yes,
when you're
sure,
done?
this is
I don't
your
wanna cut
final
you off.
comment. Let's go.
So I understand the need for funding, and if that's the choice of the board, I don't have a problem with that. My concern is that a state of emergency should actually denote an emergency. If it's just simply a state of we need funding, I would prefer if we can work towards having a different state. So an emergency could actually be an emergency because it's, we're not staying in a state of emergency because we're actually in a genuine emergency. It's because we're in a state of potentially there might be possibly funds out there. And so for me, it's the principle of that. And I understand if we have to do that to make sure that our citizens have the funds that are needed for projects. I don't know how we adjust that, but if we can find a way to work through that, that would be preferable because it tends to actually denigrate what is actually an emergency when we're just simply there indefinitely because we hope that maybe we'll get some funding someday. That's my concern.
Fair enough. Okay, let's open it up to the public. Public wishes to come forward and speak on this action item. Now's a good time. Come on up.
Sandra Jonas, 7451 Starkweather Drive in Wellington. I guess I'm just confused about the funds. Is there a funds? Do we have the money? Or are we just in an emergency state? And if we need some money, we'll call them? I don't understand.
Where we're at right now is, so the federal government has designated that there are going to be funds paid out in addition that the Congress passed recently. They're still trying to work out what exactly that's going to look like. And so the concern is that if they put a requirement on that you must be in a state of emergency due to COVID-19, I think we're looking at roughly $2.6 million that potentially could be coming to Wellington if things go forward. We don't know for sure. And the question is if we were to end the state of emergency, we might lose access to those funds. We just don't know. So we don't know that we know there will be something coming. We just don't know what the requirements will be for it.
But there is
Or if
nothing
you
now.
experience a hardship from COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other caveat to the emergency declaration, which is an important element of the funding. So and I'm going to let you continue here, Sandra, but I just wanted to make that a point that it's important to know that it's not just being under a state of an emergency, it's also the hardship that's caused from being under a state of an emergency. For instance, like the hardship to our wastewater treatment system from everybody being home instead of using toilets at work or out shopping. So there are long-term impacts from COVID-19 that the government is considering funding for, and what the terms are in order to achieve that funding is still up in the air. So we don't know, and we don't want to do anything to discount the opportunity to participate in those funding opportunities.
Well, I'm with that. I just didn't know if we already had a bunch of money and we're just sitting on it or.
No.
Because
We have
Syracuse
received money.
built a $75,000 mural with their money.
Right.
So
That's a great comment because we have received funds already in the past. And so what the town did, and I'm not going to be able to state all the numbers for you, but I can tell you the majority of the funds went back into the pockets of our community. So either for recovery funds for our small businesses, our nonprofits, and actually to do utility assistance for people who were struggling paying any utilities, not just water, any utilities, because they were impacted by COVID. So last time we received those monies, and based on the guidelines that were available at that time, we were able to push all that money, well, not all of it, but the majority of the money outside of other things that also helped us with the crisis for the town perspective, back out to all the people, businesses, nonprofits, and individuals who are struggling paying their bills. So that's how we did it last time. I mean, if we could do that again and we're allowed to, man, that would be awesome, but we don't know. We just don't know at this point.
And the last bit of funding, I think, was about $550,000. My recollection is 4 out of every 5 of those dollars went back into the community support, local business, utility assistance. The town used some of it for some, that all qualified expenses, but my recollection is 4 out of 5 dollars went back directly into the community. So I think that's pretty cool.
okay, I just wanted to get a better understanding. Thanks.
You bet. Thank you for the question. Anyone else? Okay, let's bring it back to the board. If there's no further comments or questions, I'd like to seek a motion to end it. Oh, then do nothing?
Yep, I think we have options.
Yep, so the option is to just leave it with essentially no motion.
Okay.
Or the second one was to revoke it. And there was a resolution attached for that. So if you don't want to do anything, we just, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for allowing us to continue looking for that grant funding and all sorts of it.
The resolution, the last lead resolution that was passed that extended the emergency had no termination date. So if you take no action today, the emergency will continue. There is a state statute that requires if you actually passed a motion tonight extending this, there are certain hurdles that the staff have to jump through that really are unnecessary. Publication and posting it with the clerk and recorder and other things like that. So we're just, if you'd like to continue it, just take no action and the emergency continues.
So I have some numbers on, if you want to know what the funding was spent on, $349,000 for business relief grants and signage, $90,000 on residential utility grants. That was 140 individual grants. We provided support to Town of Wellington employees to work from home since they could not be in the office, telework opportunities. Public Works, they received chemicals and storage, audio-visual for virtual meetings. We had an IGA with Larimer County for testing, and then for PPE for a total of $552,000. So it was money well spent, especially a lot of it went into the community,
Yeah,
majority.
I forgot that we contributed towards testing for Larimer
Yeah.
County. That was a cool
Mhm.
part.
That was
too.
huge.
Yeah.
Okay, I take it there's no action. No one's put anything forward, so let it ride. That's it for action items. Reports, town attorney got anything?
Nothing tonight.
Town administrator?
The Poudre School District Middle School, High School crew has contacted me and wants to know if I would like to set up a tour for our trustees to go and tour the new facilities. Would you all like a tour?
Sure.
Fabulous. I will get that set up for y'all then. Thank you.
Anything from staff? Okay. Board members, start over here. Anything you want to bring up?
Yes. I know we're really excited about the 4th of July opportunities, but I'm hearing that there is going to be a lot of competition and delays for services in 2022. So I just wanted to see if the board would be supportive of encouraging staff to be prepared to go out for RFP for things like road closure services, fireworks, any other on-call kind of contracting that we'll need for special events next year.
Point of information, you said 2022?
Next year.
Yeah, next year.
Okay.
Yeah. So go out, we want to start July 5th because it's always kind of like a rush. And it's,
Thank you.
with,
Right now.
so
Understood.
We're not right now, right? We're good for this
We
year.
have this year.
we're good this year for 2021, but start planning for 2022 on.
That's a great idea. My opinion.
So would we need to do any sort of budget amendments to make that happen or? 'Cause I
It'll
don't-
be in your 2022 budget.
Yeah, this would help prepare. They'd go out for like competitive bidding and stuff.
Okay.
In advance.
So this be information the board would like me to take back to the CAC for our next meeting to let them know this is what we'd like them to do?
Well, they don't do it, staff does it. Staff does RFP processes. They're bidding processes for expensive services like Carnes and then like the fireworks are done separately from the CAC because of the safety requirements behind them. So usually town staff takes on that responsibility specifically, but they'll want to, if they're going to go out for on-call services, they'll want to try and plan in advance.
I guess so the question is, so they don't need any information as far as what the CAC is planning to do that? Or my thought process, they need at least some information on what the CAC is planning to do to go and request, I don't know.
So they'll need to know things like potentially how many events is the CAC planning on doing next year? That kind of thing.
And to just give them an update. I mean, let them know that this is what staff is doing.
Okay, I will let them know. Thank you.
You got anything?
I'm good.
John?
Oh, were you
Oh,
done?
I'm sorry.
No, I'm done. Thank
Oh,
you
you
so
are?
much.
Oh, okay.
I'm good. I paused. I took a long
Okay,
breath.
okay.
You're good. Thank
Checking.
you.
No, I'm good.
Thank you for checking.
I'm good. Got anything?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so all the crosswalk flashing signs are now up at the elementary school, the middle school, and Rice. And that was through the efforts of finding a solution that didn't circumvent CDOT, but a solution they weren't really putting forward. And so that came out of our engineering department. I just want to thank all the people in the public works and streets who solved all this stuff after 18 months of waiting, that they got the stuff up and it's ready, they work, they're all programmed, so the crossings at the schools will have the flashing lights, and it's a great safety thing, and we've had to wait a little too long, and they're still waiting for the permits from CDOT to do the ones in Cleveland, as far as I know. But I just want to say thank you to everybody, because it was a lot harder of a process than you would have thought to get a couple of poles and a base or whatever was needed, but
A lot harder than it should have been.
yeah, so that's great.
Good news.
That's it.
Good news. Trustee Kenny, you got something?
Yeah, I have a couple things. The first one is, I don't know who else got to partake, but we're now having summer events in the park this year, back to gathering and celebrating together. I got to get out this weekend and see a bunch of people in the community, and it was wonderful. And it's what I love about Wellington. So I'm just really happy that we're starting to participate and do events and stuff like that again. And a lot of them support nonprofits in our community. So I just want to say thank you to the groups that are putting on those events and giving us a reason to celebrate and to be community. So that's really cool, and more are coming, so it's even better. The other thing I wanted to note is I've been serving on a committee through the Wellington area chamber in conjunction with a couple other groups. The idea is that they're coming together to just collaborate and serve our businesses better and see how they can do that as with different groups together. The current parties in that group are the Chamber, Wellington Main Streets, and the Larimer County Workforce. Do we remember the name of that group with Mike McConnell? Workforce
Development?
Workforce Development, I think that's what it's called. I'm sorry, I messed that up. And essentially, they're just trying to work together to make sure that all their efforts are best served together as they do programs together, things like job fairs that are coming up, and they're coordinating their efforts. So that's really good news that they're doing that. As I hear more information, I'll definitely bring it back. And I know that they hope to present or at least come and provide a letter of what they've been up to the board at some point. So we'll look forward to that again in the future too. Thank you.
Trustee Gator.
All right, so I had a couple of items that I wanted to bring up. And the first is just with public engagement. It has been really great to see all that we've had going on. I know we had our town hall. We had the first coffee with the mayor happen this last week. And I know that's something I've talked a lot about since being on the board. So I'm really excited about just the direction we're going. I think it's a great opportunity for us to continue to partner with the community and really not just be us telling the community what's going to happen, but be working with them in that. So I really appreciate the work that board and staff have been doing to make that happen, and hope we can continue that. And then somewhat on that, I talked with the CAC about 4th of July. They would like to do the ice cream with trustees. We really would like I'd like to get the board support to really try and make that a big deal if we can. We're going to try and keep it to like maybe an hour to an hour and a half. And if we want, we can split the board up so you don't have to stay there the whole time. Our thought process right now, I'm working with the CAC and staff to figure out exactly that, but we'll have some kind of a big banner. We're hoping to get together maybe some wins or positive things that have been happening. And really, instead of just having us hand out ice cream, just have an opportunity for us as the trustees to chat with our citizens as they come up, and staff can hand them ice cream and we can just talk with them, or maybe have a little card that has some positive things and just talk with the community, because a lot of our conversations of late have been water and sewer and, the horrible things that we're having to deal with, which we're dealing with, but I think it'd be great to just be able to have some of those great conversations. So I'm working with staff and CAC to get that together. Just want to know if board is comfortable giving support. We'll try to keep it short so we're not having to sit there all day, because I know people like to enjoy the event, but if we could really have strong board support, I think that would be a great opportunity as well.
What's the proposed time?
We're thinking about 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock roughly, or maybe 1 to 2:30, right in that time frame.
Is this scooping ice cream or is this?
We're going to be handing out,
bars?
no, it'll be ice cream bars.
I've done.
Oh yeah, I like the idea of scooping, but we'll wait a little. Yeah, it's messy. And most likely the thought process is we'll have staff actually handing out the ice cream. That way we as trustees can be talking with people while they're in line or just chatting with them. If you want to hand out ice creams, you can. But really the idea that I have is let's try to, we've been doing so well with engagement. Let's another great opportunity to engage with public outside of the boardroom, outside of an official meeting, just to have some great conversations.
Sounds good.
Would you guys like to do like a split shift where we have like half the board show up for the first 45 minutes, half the board for the second, or just us all try to be there as much as possible? What would work? What would you guys as a board prefer? And I can work with CAC and staff to work it out with what you guys feel best.
How about shifts of 2? So we don't have to worry about sunshine stuff, right?
Oh, that's a good idea.
That's exactly right.
So like shifts of 2 and like overlapping of 30 or 45 minutes maybe?
Okay.
Would that be? Okay.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I'll take somebody's shift if you don't want to hand out ice cream.
Right, I'll be floating around. Just grab me.
Ms. Garcia, because I know I can't email the whole board, would you be willing to kind of work with us to work out those shifts?
We will coordinate your shifts.
Thank you.
Sign up,
You
Gina.
bet.
Yeah.
All right. And then the last thing, and this was just a question I had. I know we had a Board of Adjustments meeting I believe it was last week or the week before, and we had one of the citizen members wasn't able to make it. I know we had 2 trustees as alternates. I don't know what the process is, but we didn't have enough people. So the citizens that were waiting to get something through, it got pushed again. Do we know what happened? Did they communicate with you guys?
I was out of town.
Okay.
Are you guys the alternates?
Yes.
Oh.
You guys have to coordinate your vacation schedule.
Okay. That's all I got.
Thanks, John.
What about you, Mayor?
I don't have anything. I would urge the public to, if you want to get on this comp plan, let's get the dates out there, let them know, come to the next meeting, put your questions out there, let's make the thing happen and get it working, okay? Do the best we can with it. Other than that, I have nothing. I think everybody's doing a good job. I appreciate it very much. And the attendance is good. My gosh. All right, I got 7:35. I have no further business. I'll seek a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call. All in favor, I guess. huh?
Aye.
Aye.